The thief was so arrogant that he planned to steal from the police station, but he was forced to do so. Just 2 years ago, Paul and his accomplices broke into a bank and used high-tech technology to open the vault door and steal a diamond worth over $100 million. Unexpectedly, his accomplice, Carter, was going to take it for himself, and he shot another accomplice, causing him to fall from the roof of a building onto a parked police car. Soon a large number of police arrived and surrounded the bank. Paul uses the zip line to get away from the unfinished building across the street. He taped the diamonds to the air ducts before the police arrived. He thought he'd come back for them when the wind died down, but the police caught him as soon as he climbed out. When he was taken away, he memorized the location of the ducts on the 3rd floor. Since the police never found the diamonds, Paul was only jailed for 2 years, and today was the day he was released from prison. Paul was so excited that he was going to be a billionaire, but when he arrived at the building, it had been turned into a police station. Paul was a little depressed, but he soon had an idea. He came back to the police station disguised as a delivery boy and told the receptionist that he was going to deliver a pizza on the 3rd floor. The fat cop refused, saying that if you want to go up to the 3rd floor, you're either a cop or a criminal. Paul had just gotten out and didn't want to go back in. At this point, Officer David was blocked from entering because he didn't know how to use his credit card. Paul gave him the pizza and took the card. Then he found his uncle, who owned a restaurant and was an expert in counterfeiting, and he gave Paul a fake police identity. The next day Paul waltzed into the police station and got into the elevator. When he got to the 3rd floor, he went straight to the women's restroom, where the ventilation ducts were. Unexpectedly, an escaped prisoner broke in. Thinking he'd been spotted, Paul kicked the door of the restroom and knocked him out. When the real police arrived, Paul explained that he had caught the escaped prisoner as he was trying to escape. The commissioner was puzzled and asked him who he was. He said he'd just been transferred here today. At that moment, a policewoman came in to use the restroom, so the commissioner asked no more questions. Plus, his uncle's fake resume was full of Paul's honorable deeds, so the chief was very pleased with him and made David his partner. The two of them then went to a garage where the owner claimed to have stolen a batch of wheels. But Paul, with his years of experience as a thief, realizes that the owner is lying and that he must be stealing from his own people in order to cheat the insurance. Eventually, Paul found the wheels hidden in a van. The case was solved so easily that David admired him. On the way back, Paul was very excited. He had never thought that being a cop would be so much fun. On the way, he came to the supermarket to buy something but accidentally stumbled upon a Ross as a tough guy, so he pulls out a gun and fights the robber. Carter didn't want any trouble, but his partner, David, kept yelling at him outside. Carter had no choice but to take action. He told the robber to put down his gun, but he didn't realize that the robber would turn around and see that he was his childhood friend. At that moment, David also entered the supermarket. Carter was afraid of being exposed, so he instructed him to escape through the back door. Unexpectedly, this kid just went out the door and ran into a dead-end street. He hid behind a garbage can. The director was going to call in a sniper. Carter heard this and stopped him, and then he rushed out and pretended to negotiate with the robbers. Carter told him he'd get $10,000 tomorrow if he let me arrest you, but he said he'd have to add at least $50,000. Carter was afraid of being exposed, so he agreed to do it, and then he knocked him down. David was instantly impressed and went back to the police station to spread the word about his heroism, but the chief was suspicious of his identity because there was no record of him in the archives. Carter lied that he was an undercover agent and that his information was classified. The commissioner, a fool, was so easily fooled that he promoted him to captain. But Carter didn't care about that. He just wanted to find the diamonds as soon as possible. He climbed into the ventilation ducts, but the diamonds were already gone. Luckily, his colleague told him that the pipe above had been ruptured and was washed away by the water. With renewed hope, Carter puts a remote-controlled car in the ducts and wears sunglasses with a camera attached, and looks around. After a while, he found it, but the diamonds were above the evidence room. When he was ready to go in, the chief suddenly stopped him and asked him to work on a smuggling case. Although Carter was upset, he had to follow the chief's orders. When they arrived at the scene, they found the place had been taken over by federal agents. Carter thought he'd have some time off, but on the way back, the more he thought about it, the more it didn't make sense. Criminals usually set up big cases to distract the police, and then make drug deals in secret. David thought it made sense, so he called for air support. At that moment, the pilot spotted a suspicious truck and the three of them immediately drove to catch up with it and soon caught up with each other at an intersection. They opened the door, and there were two armed drug dealers inside. Carter had made a great achievement, and the commissioner was very pleased with him. He took the opportunity of the drug inspection to go to the evidence room and finally got the diamond back. But before he could be happy, something else happened. The diamond was worth over $100 million and Carter was about to kiss it when he was startled by the shouting and the diamond fell into the pile of drugs. It turned out to be the director who came in and told Carter to get down here. The feds were going to use the drugs to lure out the drug dealers. Carter was devastated. His diamonds were still in there, but all he could do was watch as the drugs were taken away. Suddenly, Carter had a plan. He offered to go undercover. The feds were worried about finding the right man for the job, so they said yes. They taught Carter how to disguise himself as a criminal, not realizing that Carter was a fake cop and that he was really a thief. Then they arrived at the location of the deal with the drug dealer and Carter didn't care about the mission. He went straight to the car to look for the diamonds and soon found them in the crevices of the car. Suddenly, a man with a gun enters the room. the same man who betrayed him. Paul. 2 years earlier, he had killed another partner to keep the diamonds for himself. Paul snatched the diamonds from Carter. And just as he was about to kill Carter, the van was suddenly lifted up and transported directly to the drug dealers. Looking at the 3 men in the van, the drug lord was baffled. Carter lied about coming to deal with them, but Paul said he was a cop. In order to verify Carter's identity, the boss gave him a gun and told him to kill Paul. Without saying a word, Carter raises the gun and shoots, but the boss wasn't satisfied. He told him to shoot him in the head. When Carter hesitated, the boss became suspicious, but the police arrived at the right moment, and a fierce exchange of gunfire ensued. The scene was a mess. The boss was grabbed just as he was about to get into his car, and Paul took advantage of the situation to drive away. Carter, of course, is not going to let him get away. He's been chasing him for a long time. Suddenly he speeds up and shoots a smoke grenade through the driver's side air vent, filling the car with smoke. Carter accelerated to the front again and then braked sharply. Paul could not avoid it and crashed into the truck, rolled over and stopped on the road. Carter got out of the car and handcuffed the injured Paul, then took the diamonds and left. Unwillingly, Paul pulled out a pistol, only to be shot in the chest by Carter. When it was all over, his partner David told him that he knew you were a thief, but he also knew that Carter was a good guy and that Carter had already crossed the border into Mexico when he was chasing Paul, and now David had no right to arrest him. Carter had escaped with his life. The 2 men wanted to hug and say goodbye, but that didn't seem like the right thing to do, so they just shook hands. Carter was on his way to the top of the heap with his diamonds.